At the end of this year, we would like to reflect on all volunteering projects we did in 2025.
And which one was the most shocking for you?
The most shocking and the most emotionally difficult one was about the sharks in Albania. The amount of bycatch we saw, realizing that the problem is much, much greater, was very shocking. There were how many sharks came in?
It was more than 100, but it happens every day. It was like, it's only was from one boat, and there's 20 of such boats going every day. But you also got to cut a shark.
I got to cut a shark. It was tricky.
Which one was the most successful?
St. Martin's in Slovenia. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So the story was we came there to volunteer in March. And it was basically just building a sandball. A few hours of work for about 20 volunteers. And then we came back in June. We just took a canoes and went down to see this island, and it was wow. I think, if I remember correctly, more than 200 pairs of St. Martins. Right. And if we wouldn't done this job, there would be zero. So wow.
Yeah.
And which one was the most hardest for you physically?
So the hardest one was the trash boat race in Hungary. Completely unprepared for that one. It seemed it would be easy. The stream is gonna carry us and we get a just easy ride. But no, it was super physically demanding, and I really messed up my back at the end of it as well.
And of course, to collect all of this rubbish, it's also shocking how much rubbish is there. Now, the hardest for me was in Netherlands with glass eels. That was insane. Like, really, for me, it was much more demanding. I was really surprised by those volunteers who like willingly go in all of this mud in this very cold weather, and just like, it's so dirty, it's so physically demanding and hard. And they're just taking out those tiny creatures, glass eels, and do this like completely for free. I admire those people, but it was super hard for me.
But you saw those guys that were really tough guys.
Tough guys, for
sure. Really tough guys.
It's nice. This a little muddy over here.
And you did really good. You did amazing.
Yeah, but it was only I was there only for one night. These guys doing all the time.
I was filming from the side and I was looking at you. I'm like, oh my God, there's no way I'm doing that. But yeah, you did good. You did good.
And which one you liked the most?
Irish bees. Pat was an amazing guy, and we installed a lot of these
bee lodge posts.
I got stung by bees. I was stung. It hurt so much. Which seemed horrible at that time, but now we can laugh about it, and it's actually quite funny. And another project that I enjoyed a lot was the dolphin research in France. It was in fact my very first dolphin research, and I had the best experience ever. The boat was amazing. I had all these educational evenings. We were not very lucky with the weather and we didn't see much. We really hope to see dolphins.
I think the one which I felt like really successful, and I'm proud of results, this crazy expedition to search for Risa dolphins, and it was like everything what could go wrong went wrong.
Everything went wrong.
Of course, the weather. Then I lost the drone of islands, and I feel so bad.
Take off.
Then our boat was cancelled, then our boat was meant on the shore, then the weather changed, then we couldn't get there, then they raised the price, then we couldn't find the Risa dolphins.
I am confused.
And then at the very end, at the very last hour, we got them.
Yeah. This was a great example when you struggle a lot and then you have the reward at the end, but of course not always works out like this, but this time it worked out perfectly, just perfect story.
Yeah, I think what opposite was maybe in my data, because we also worked so much, but we didn't manage to find the birds. Like other volunteers, they found. It's about light pollution and seawater birds. They're migrating, and because of the light, they get confused. So they fall down, they crash into the lights, and then our job as a volunteers go out every night and just looking for them. When we find them, we put them in a box and release them in a dark place. You managed to release one bird.
Yeah,
How
the
was
bird did so good. We could track it afterwards, its movement and location, because we put the GPS on it. It went happily in the sea, and it was doing okay. So not all the birds, unfortunately, do well. Some return back to the light, crash again, and some die or disappear, which is heartbreaking. But our bird did well, so that was heartwarming.
Our year actually started in Cyprus, where we did this project with Moraine Protected Area and the research on the turtles. And you remember we had this huge drone.
Yeah,
My drone is like tiny like this.
baby.
Yeah, baby drone. Then in February we went to Slovakia for this electric lines project with the birds.
Oh, I just joined there for one day. We were watching the swans flying over these electric lines, and we were keeping our fingers crossed. Don't crash. And they didn't. They were safe, so that was really good. But we found a carcass of a swan, and the feathers were everywhere, so it was eaten by other animals, and it was quite disturbing.
They do like amazingly good job putting those diverters and isolating cables and what's not.
And there's so many people involved, so much effort to put in taking care that the birds are safe.
Yeah. Also, remember in Slovenia how they converted the old sugar factory into nature reserve. That was wow. When we were there, I would never tell. Like a few years before, it was like factory.
Yeah. That's a very unique experience to collect the seeds, because there are not so many in Europe. Seed banks.
Seed banks. I'm not sure, but it's quite
Yeah,
rare.
just very few, and physical labor again. But knowing that this is an ongoing project for many years in the future, and being part of it is quite important.
Yeah, that was all done to save the biodiversity of meadows, yeah. And then was our trip to Switzerland.
Ooh, the Switzerland and wolves. So we were protecting the wolves by protecting the sheep. We spent the night with a herd of sheep and taking care that the wolves do not come close and do not attack. And the human presence alone scares them most of the time. So it's important that every night there is a person by the herd.
It was middle of the summer, but the temperature now was freezing. It was ice in our tent, and it was like, wow. They're running this project for 5 years, and in these 5 years there was no single attack of a wolf.
We're attacking our tent!
There were attempts, but volunteers always managed to scare away the wolves, which actually saved the wolves. I think it's amazing.
That's a big success story.
One of the fails of the year was this project with Waldraps or bald ibises. They actually teach the migration to bald ibises from Germany all the way to southern Spain, because they have difficulties migrating alone. They have ultralight plane. They teach the ibises to follow it, but unfortunately this year bird didn't really follow them, and they tried so many times and they just get lost, and somehow it didn't work. So we actually didn't manage also to finish this project ourselves, because they're always changing the plan. Couldn't even afford to just so often go there. At the end, they basically drive the birds most of the time. They almost haven't flew by themselves. Then there was a World Cleanup Day, as every year. Nothing fancy there. We were in Poland. We just did a cleanup.
The big fluffy owls. I'm so heartbroken that I missed that.
Yeah, there was this project with owls.
Yeah.
It's so sad you couldn't join, because they're so fluffy and it's so interesting. We catch them at night, of course, owls, and we catch 3 different species, and it was, well,
So cute.
On the next day there was another project with also electrocutions of the raptors this time, and it's mainly about Saker falcons, but actually all of the raptors. So we went into the field and were looking for carcasses and identifying the dangerous electric poles, and later this data will be used to isolate them.
Yes.
And then I think the biggest fail of the year was trip to India. We traveled so far, and there was this project about rewilding the city spaces, the planting trees and making ponds and do a lot of great stuff. And everything started good, but then the weather. There was a cyclone. It's actually called Cyclone Ditva. That's the one which started in Sri Lanka, and there's like more than 1,000 people died, and then it moved to Chennai, to the city where we were. So everything was closed. All of the volunteering job, of course, was postponed. Schools were closed. It was all flooded. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys, for being with us this year and following our volunteering adventures.
All of the episodes we have mentioned you can find on our channel. If you want to support us, you can join our Patreon. But most importantly, go out and try volunteering yourself.
And we hope that our journey have inspired you to try volunteering yourself, or at least give you encouragement. Happy holidays and happy 2026.
Be brave to act.
Be brave to act. Yeah.